everyone! Unfortunately, the time has come. Final Fantasy month has come to a close, but not before I list down my favorite titles from this legendary franchise, along with the titles that I really don't care that much about. And please don't interpret this list as a top 10 of my favorite Final Fantasy games, because it's really not. Since the franchise now sports over 30 games under its wing, the 20 or so games in between the top 5 and the last 5 will not make an appearance on this list. Also, the least favorite half of this video doesn't correspond to bad games necessarily. Well, not for the most part. They're merely games that for some reason or another just didn't click with me. Oh, and I'm also excluding spin-offs and side games. So, no Dissidia, no Crisis Core, no Final Fantasy Tactics, and so forth. I'll only be looking at main numbered series games. And lastly, take into account that this is just my opinion and that if you disagree with it, that's fine. Just try to be civil about it. Now let's get this show on the road. Ladies, gentlemen, and others, the closing act to Final Fantasy month. Please enjoy.
True strength. Such is the curse of men. You think our rage a weakness? Then let me show you how wrong you are!
Oh well, might as well start this countdown with a can of controversy and a side dish of unpopular gamer opinion. Final Fantasy VII. Yeah, I know. But please hear me out first. I know this game was amazing back in the day. I know it set the standard for other RPGs of its generation. And I know it's the best-selling Final Fantasy title with the most side games and projects dedicated to itself. And it was my very first Final Fantasy experience too. But nostalgia goggles have no effect on me. And I call them like I see them. Final Fantasy VII isn't a bad game by any means. It just isn't what the fan base praises it to be. The story is mediocre at best. The characters, albeit interesting, are hardly anything significant outside of the Cloud, Tifa, Aerith, and Sephiroth pentagon. The music is sublime though, which is nice. I know it's really not fair to judge older games by current standards, but there are things that can and will carry on to future generations. Things such as narrative, characterization, character development, just to name a few. And in these regards, Final Fantasy VII is just okay. As I said, it's not a bad game by any means, but it's nothing that amazing to write home about neither. Now is it? And those character models. Really? I mean, for real? All the models look like they're related to freaking Popeye. Besides, the whole game tries to oversell Sephiroth like he's Darth Vader or something. But no, just no. I've already riffed enough on poor Sepster, so no need to beat on a dead horse anymore. Additionally, the materia system is nothing all that amazing either. I mean, in concept, having these orbs of concentrated energy that allow magic to be used is a pretty cool idea, I admit it. But in practice, all that means is that characters are practically interchangeable, with nothing but stats and limit breaks to set them apart from each other. Final Fantasy VII is undoubtedly a very divisive title. It's usually either heralded as the best of an era or the first step to the franchise's ruin. And personally, I'm somewhere in the middle. Final Fantasy VII is by no means a terrible game, but as a longtime RPG fan, I feel it just didn't live up to the crazy hype it showered with. What do you get when you take the beautifully rendered graphics and cutscenes from Final Fantasy VII and VIII and mix them with the traditional fantasy story of a classic Final Fantasy game? Why, Final Fantasy IX, of course! Gone are the high-techy worlds of the near future of the two predecessors. Gone are Nomura's belts, zippers, and spiky hair. And instead, we're presented with endearing, cute character designs and some of the most lovable and surprising well-developed characters and a whimsical medieval steampunk setting that serves as a return to tradition. Final Fantasy IX is usually considered by some as a love letter to the whole series, and honestly, can you blame them? The game touches upon just about every aspect of a Final Fantasy game. Even its design was engineered to honor the games that came before it. Chocobos, black mages, Moogles, and airships are just scratching the surface of a game that attempted to bring together the best of the old with the best of the new. But unfortunately, it's a game that a lot of people seem to be indifferent towards. You won't find a lot of people who hate it, but then again, you won't find a lot of folks who praise it to the gods. It's still a solid little game with its own charms and character-centered plot that gives the game a warmth unique to the series. The game also has a simple yet addictive system of learning abilities, and that is, every piece of equipment has a set of abilities for you to learn once you equip it. And this is where the addicting part comes into play, since you'll be hunting down every last sword, armor, dagger, and hat to make yourself stronger. The only legitimate criticism I have to offer is that the side quests and the Chocobo hot and cold can be excruciatingly grueling to complete. Oh, and that final boss that comes completely out of thin air. And let's not forget that this is the very first time in the series that humor makes its way into the franchise. And I mean deliberate humor. Humor that is introduced to help balance off the drama and made us feel more invested in the characters. Something that later games could do with. Like, urgently. So, after Squeenix flopped yet again, after giving us an MMO experience with a Final Fantasy sticker glued on it, Square Enix goes back and gives us a single-player game with MMO-style combat.
Oh, joy.
Final Fantasy XII, everyone. I used to absolutely detest this game. Luckily, I'm not so hard on it right now for reasons that I'll delve into later. My first experience with this game was when I was around 16, I think. And all I can recall from the whole experience is, well, not a whole lot actually. I remember the characters, I remember liking Balthier a whole lot, and Ash and Bosch were okay characters for the most part, and Vaughn was just an annoying, bratty, wannabe sissy. Because, believe me, I wish I was making this up. I really didn't get much into the plot neither, because, well, most of it just flew right by me. The plot offers extended cutscenes that dive into the affairs and matters of the country of Dalmasca and its political relations with the encircling countries. The plot has this refreshing take that it no longer revolves around an emerging world crisis, but this is no way to shift the focus. Instead of getting an intricate plot with a well-built narrative, you get politics. Because honestly, what 16-year-old responds to this like,
Oh boy! Just what I wanted! Politics.
Because those worked so well in the Star Wars prequels. Hell, even Vaughn, the alleged lead character, basically gets shuffled off to the sidelines early in the game. Which just goes to show how much the creators cared about some of the cast. Which leads to my biggest gripe with the whole game. The battle system. In addition to the license board. The battle system tries desperately to convey this look of a semi-action RPG when it's just an MMO ripoff. Besides, is it me? Or at the right angle, doesn't it look like your character is taking a tinkle at the enemy? Which just makes the whole thing a lot more awkward if you're using Fran, Ash, or Penelo. But the license board has got to be the stupidest and most broken thing to ever be thought of by anyone, ever. You're telling me I need a license to buy a pair of pants and a hat? Okay, for weapons and magic, I can sorta see the reasoning behind that. But for anything else, that is just other.
Put this.
But hey, it's not like you actually have to play the damn game. I mean, abusing the license port will give you early access to what you want, and with the gambit system and a little know-how, you can basically make the game play itself. But you know what? Since I liked Vayne so much as a villain, and since now I'm a little more politically savvy, I'm actually willing to give this game another shot, and that's why it's at number 4. Man, talk about a game that stood the test of time. More than any other Final Fantasy game before or since, Final Fantasy IV is one of the better games in the entire franchise. It truly is one of the rarest occurrences in Final Fantasy history, since this little gem has had the honor of having 4, count 'em, 4 different re-releases and 1 direct sequel that must never be spoken of ever again! This game is so well built that I consider it, as well as Final Fantasy IX and the next entry on this side, to be the best entry points of the franchise for anyone who hasn't played the Final Fantasy game yet. Final Fantasy IV offered strongly defined 3-dimensional protagonists and NPCs, and all characters proved to be equally memorable in their designs, their actions, and their distinct abilities. And yes, even that spoony Vard. And as the game further progresses, it only gets better and better. Additionally, the difficulty is quite well balanced, enough to give a proper challenge to even the most seasoned RPG enthusiasts. This had to be one of the very first examples of an overarching theme that carries through the entire game and helps to embellish the story and develop the characters. And in the case of Final Fantasy IV, these themes are betrayal, redemption, and strife. Every character gets a well-defined backstory that makes them stand out individually and makes you genuinely care for them. Even if Cecil gets more attention as a man trying to make amends for his dark past, other characters in the game also find themselves coming to terms with the consequences of their actions and the darkness within them. Sadly, the plot of the game is a little too bare bones and quite generic to get any higher than this. But with an incredible original soundtrack that was so influential that the song Theme of Love is taught to music students in Japan as part of their curriculum, and with the game filled with memorable moments and engaging gameplay, it's no wonder it's so highly regarded. With its focus on characters, unique art, and a balanced mix of technology and magic, in many ways, this is the go-to title that you go to when looking for a complete Final Fantasy experience. Just don't ever try to pick up the after years.
No, God!
When you add the word disappointing to a Final Fantasy title, some notorious games might pop into your head, but no other Final Fantasy title has ever been as disappointing as Final Fantasy XIII. This game frustrates me to no end. It's a beautiful world with okay characters at best. Though Snow is freaking obnoxious. I mean, seriously, the guy's like the Naruto of the Final Fantasy universe. Also, the graphics do look stunning, and the music is pretty good, despite the Grandmaster Nobuo Uematsu not being involved in the project. But this game's 2 biggest weaknesses are undeniably the gameplay and the plot, and they both irritate me equally. I mean, literally, all you do in this game is walk forward, down hallway after corridor after tunnel after hallway, and fight. Yes, in brackets. Because the battle system is a freaking joke. It all comes down to over 20 hours of press X to win. And what baffles me even more is how in the holy hell did a game this terrible give birth to not 1, but 2 unwanted, unneeded, unrefined, subpar sequels. Though I will be frank and admit that I at least enjoyed 13-2 since it was a small improvement, but it was still a hastily put together mess that recycles much of what made 13 a mess to begin with. Not to mention that they killed all sort of RPG world building mechanics by having no NPC interaction, no town exploration, and so forth. In fact, people who praise Final Hallway 13 say that And I quote, "By eliminating distractions like cities, this allows a new approach to RPG storytelling, which keeps players constantly engaged in the events and battles unfolding with few interruptions in between." Are you shitting me? This isn't storytelling. This isn't establishing a world and its lore, its culture, its mentality, and other social norms. This is outright laziness. Sometimes I just think to myself that the whole franchise is dead and Square Enix is just sitting there poking the corpse with a stick, hoping something will ooze out of it. Hell, if anything positive came out of this game, is that it proves that players have come to expect certain established elements in a Final Fantasy game, and when you take them away, you're gonna have yourself a really, really bad time. I bet I'm gonna get some flack for this, but number 3 is Final Fantasy VI. Yes, I know it's regarded as the best that the series has to offer, and I share that sentiment. But the thing is, I'm not being objectively analytical here. In fact, the whole thing about this list is for me to not be objectively analytical, since I am quantifying how much of a kick I get out of these games. Anyway, the last 2D title in the main Final Fantasy series, Final Fantasy VI held on its own over time and still remains as one of the most beloved and highly praised titles in the entire franchise, even today. Not only did its story leave a lasting impression, but the 2D graphics are some of the very best for its time. The opera scene especially stands out for both a detailed background and animated orchestra. Most Final Fantasy games tend to focus on the main lead, but Final Fantasy VI doesn't have just one lead, it has a whole cast of them. It's this presentation of different characters and their tales, all interconnected with each other, that makes it so unusual for a Final Fantasy game. Yet, that's the very aspect that makes Final Fantasy VI so unique and memorable. Plus, every character feels like a very distinct individual, with their own unique set of skills, personality, and quirks. Between Terra, the love child between an Esper and a human, Tlok, our dashing rogue thief, Sabin, the martial artist who can German suplex a mother-flipping train, among others, there will definitely be someone you will fall in love with. And all of these characters and their stories come full circle in the second half of the game, known only as the World of Ruin, which comes about after the game's villain, Kefka, destroys the very world you inhabit. And as many of you know, Kefka was definitely memorable in his own right, for being both amusing, yet mentally deranged and disturbing, as well as an epic final boss. And with the theme, like Dancing Mad, it remains to some as Nobuo Uematsu's magnum opus. With an epic presentation that matches its story and its characters, a game this memorable and well constructed is certainly nothing short of a masterpiece. Sadly, there's just 2 other games in this franchise that entertain me more. Okay, let's see what's next on the... No! No! This game. I fucking hate this game! Words alone cannot describe how angry and revolted I feel with the quote-unquote story and character development, or lack thereof, in this game. After one of the most unique Final Fantasy titles came out and graced our PS2s, why, oh why, did we get something as painful as this for a sequel? This story is so badly structured and so badly written that you just might as well write it off as 5th grade fanfic material. As a matter of fact, most people do pretend 10-2 is just bad fanfiction, at least just as much as the audio drama and the FF10 2.5 novel Squeenix came up with. Because I refuse to accept this as canon. It's the only way you can ever enjoy this game at all, and I really need to address this. Okay, within this game's context, Yuna resolves a conflict between two rivaling factions that seek to lead Spira into a new future. And how does she go about to resolve this? She does so by singing. Why is this game so stupid? Okay, we go from being the most powerful summoner in the world to fucking John Lennon. La la la, love and peace, and now that I'm singing, everything's alright.
Fuck this shit in the ass!
Okay, the story might suck. There's too many minigames and not enough dungeon crawling, to the point of them being borderline boring fetch quests and massage simulators that really don't belong anywhere near a Final Fantasy game. But ooh boy, do they more than overcompensate with the Via Infinito dungeon. Do they ever? But hey, it's not like nothing is salvageable in this game. The combat is pretty solid, though the dress sphere system is a little too Sailor Moon-esque for my taste. There is practically nothing worthwhile saving in this game. Not even the soundtrack. There's nothing that can save this game. Square Enix would have been better off leaving Final Fantasy X alone. And considering the quality of the gutter garbage they pass off as writing, they really should leave things as they are right now. Final Fantasy VIII. Oh boy, this game. This game is definitely one of the series' most divisive entries. You either love Final Fantasy VIII to bits, or you loathe it with the burning fury of 1,000 autarchs. And arguably, most of the complaints about this game are legitimately valid. Most of the plot seems to be completely improvised and convoluted as shit. Though Squall plays a good soldier and active military leader, his brooding and emo levels can almost rival Shinji Ikari for most of the game. Most of your party members seem to have the depth of paper and are either annoying or just plain dumb. The draw system turns magic into items with a limit to how much magic you can actually draw, and the junction system is overly complicated and stupidly broken. If you happen to be a noob. The thing is, for every single point people make against the game, I can turn it around on them and make these same aspects fun and enjoyable, at least for myself. The junction system is complicated? Psh, what's so complicated about placing a certain spell next to an attribute to boost your stats? I mean, yes, some magics are better suited for specific attributes, but that's up to you to find out. Or do you want the game to hold your hand like a widow baby? Both drawing and the fighting system are broken? Yeah, sure. In a game that only makes itself harder on yourself by making bosses stronger every time you level up? Yeah, sure. That sounds like it's broken, alright. Not to mention that through GF abilities you can refine and create stronger magic from items, cards, and other magic spells, making it a lot easier on yourself by compensating for level caps. The characters suck, you say? Well, most do. But you can't deny that you love Laguna, because Laguna is the man with the machine gun, and you will worship the very ground he walks on like he's freaking Jesus. And about the plot being shite, that's only half right. The story only really starts to fall apart in the third disc with the whole the more you use GFs, the more they affect your memory thing. And what little plot there is in the final disc, to me, is genius. But maybe that's just me, because I actually like time travel plot devices. Besides, the soundtrack is pure eargasm. Final Fantasy VIII's original soundtrack is my favorite soundtrack out of all Final Fantasy games. People like to point out flaws in this game, but to me, Final Fantasy VIII is just fun. Pure fun. Yes, it can be a mess sometimes, but there are little glimpses of brilliance here and there. And yes, newcomers are more likely to be confused with everything, but for seasoned veterans, this game is pure bliss. It's one of the best RPGs to play if you're looking to challenge yourself. Seriously, give yourself a handicap. Make a challenge run. Just try to do an NGF, NJNL run. Or if that doesn't tickle your fancy, do a MOLJNCLGFLINLBLA challenge run. You will feel so effing accomplished by the end of it. Trust me. And well, that just leaves one more thing to add to my final remarks.
Screw you, Spoony One.
Even the baddest of the bad games in the Final Fantasy franchise have an inkling of merits and can be memorable in their own accord, whether it's for better or for worse. As boring and linear as Final Fantasy XIII is, it's still memorable in its own accord, and as much as I despise X-2, even that game leaves an impression on you. Final Fantasy II, on the other hand, is the very definition of meh. For starters, Final Fantasy II suffers not only from an odd battle system with a lack of experience points, but it also has forgettable and stereotypical characters aside from the Emperor and maybe Gordon. And a plot so cliched it's not even funny anymore. Wanna know how forgettable this game really is? I played Final Fantasy II some odd 5 or so years ago, and it left such an impression on me that I needed to watch reviews and Let's Play videos to remind myself of, oh yeah, that happened. How did I forget about that? And I'll tell you why. Because this game is so weak, it doesn't have the proper footing to stand on its own. Why do you think that it's always released together with the first and original Final Fantasy title? This is certainly Final Fantasy II's greatest sin. It's a forgettable Final Fantasy title. And as bad as Final Fantasy games can get, being forgettable is just about the worst thing that a game in this franchise can be. Besides, the leveling system, if you can even call it that, is so asinine backwards, it's just ludicrous. Everyone and their great aunties know that in an RPG, you get experience by killing enemies, and with that experience, you get to level up. So, how does Final Fantasy II tackle leveling up? Instead of the established norm, you get a hilariously broken stat building system where you're obligated to grind to get better stats. Want to gain attack power? Just attack a whole lot. Want to power up your magic? Just use a lot of it. Want to gain some health? Get hit a lot. I am not even joking. And the game enables this by letting you attack your own party and yourself for fun and profit. If anything, this game just shows what not to do with game design. The only real interesting and worthwhile character in the whole game is Emperor Matthias, and he's the villain. And when you wish you could play as the main villain for the whole thing more than the dang cast of heroes, you know you've done something very, very wrong with your game.
Listen to my story. This may be our last chance.
And with those words, a journey more life-changing than I'd ever imagined began. Final Fantasy X did for modern RPGs what Final Fantasy VII did for PS1 era titles. It changed the standard to which we held JRPGs, proving that the series is not afraid to reinvent itself for a new generation. From a storytelling perspective, Final Fantasy X is as endearing and sophisticated as some of the better games in the franchise. Themes like journey, family, and duty are explored alongside with a clear criticism of religion, racism, and xenophobia, told through a story with characters that feel right at home in the sad and desolate world of Spira. And the bittersweet soundtrack helps to establish Spira as a believable setting for the narrative. Though I will say that the inhabitants of Spira have a off-putting sense of fashion. I wouldn't be caught that in one of those. Add an equally bittersweet romance that tugs on your heartstrings for the longing to hear the words, I love you being exchanged by the main romantic couple of the game. Add that to that unforgettable intimate lake scene between Titus and Yuna, and this romance will make you feel like you're getting hit with multiple arrows in the heart.
Right in the Kokoro.
And unlike some other installments, the story doesn't fly off the rails towards the end either. It stays focused and delivers a satisfying payoff as well as an emotionally devastating ending. And granted, Titus might not be the best protagonist ever made for a Final Fantasy game. He may be cheerfully obnoxious and oblivious until the story calls for him to be more pensive and down to earth, but the majority of the main cast are sure to make you feel deeply attached to them. Props to Auron, Lulu, and Yuna for that. Another aspect that I consider just as important, Final Fantasy X is also synonymous with Blitzball and the Sphere Grid. Blitzball, while not the most competent of minigames, does provide with a consistent fun time for me and an easily addicting distraction that also involves a lot of strategic thinking, which is highly appreciated on my part. In regards to the Sphere Grid, it might have added a dynamic element to character development by giving the player almost a complete control over the skills and stat progression of every character, but like Final Fantasy VII, once you grind enough and have every character fill their whole Sphere Grid, they become interchangeable and only their overdrives will make them distinct. Fortunately, however, it takes a very long while for that to happen, so characters are likely to remain as distinct as they are from the beginning to the end of your adventure. All in all, Final Fantasy X succeeded in resurrecting a true turn-based and more strategic battle system that would play out just as quickly as an ATB battle system. And let's also not forget that this is the first game where you could control summons as if they were party members, adding even more layers of depth to this game. Additionally, the late game section before the point of no return has you doing so much stuff. Just so much stuff, it's ridiculous. Getting all the Aeons, capturing all the monsters, the chocobo races, exploring the Omega ruins and trying to beat Omega, beating the Dark Aeons and later Penance. It's just so much stuff. And there is so much more that I haven't even covered. Those challenges make sure that you put a lot of effort into completing them. Even that infuriating lightning dodge minigame. All in all, when people tend to ask me what games influenced me on a personal level, you can bet that this game will be up there. Rarely can a game hit all the marks with me like Final Fantasy X did. It nailed everything from plot to gameplay. It's a gorgeously designed game with a unique look and style that still holds up today. And I will never stop loving it for it. Hey there everyone, I just wanted to thank each and every one of you for your continued support and for being so freaking patient. I wouldn't have gotten where I am today without any of you guys. You guys made this happen. This was all thanks to you. Pat yourself on the back there, buddy. You deserve it. This Final Fantasy month was made as an appreciation to every single one of you. Because all of you guys deserve it. And I love you all from the bottom of my heart. Really, I am close to 700 subscribers right now, and even though some people might think 700 subscribers is nothing, but to me, to know that almost 700 people watch me and my videos is amazing. And thanks to your continued support, I can only promise that as long as these videos are fun for me to make, I'll continue making them until you guys have had enough of them, or until I'm not having fun with them anymore. And I'd like to give a special shout out for my personal friend Xing Lung for helping me a whole bunch with the artwork for my videos. Seriously sis, I can't love you enough. I'd urge you to check her Facebook page to help her out. I'll put the link somewhere down here probably. And if you haven't watched the past videos from Final Fantasy month, then what the heck are you waiting for? Here, I'll put the links here, maybe here, or here. Who knows? I'll figure this out later. And as always, everyone, this has been That Rusty Gamer, aka the Red Eye Hound, signing off till next time. Bye-bye.